This is where you started your activism, as you will.
It was. It
Okay.
was.
Now, you get to a point where you say, you're putting the police life behind you. You retired from the force.
Correct.
Okay. So you made it to retirement. You went through all that. I'm sure you FTO'd and rose up a lot of young black, not just black, but a lot of officers
Correct.
under you.
Yep.
A part of a lot of different types of outfits, seen and done a lot of stuff.
Correct.
How did you reconcile what you were doing out there? Because you brought up a lot of points about, who was getting arrested the most.
Correct.
A lot of stuff that you saw that I'm sure you can't even talk about. How did you reconcile that with what was in your heart and in your mind about what you were seeing and what you know?
It was that incident where I told you about the officer that was drunk and making those comments. Time went on and everything, and because of the stuff that I was doing that they deemed was against the police department, people are always making comments, And at that time when I was in the detective bureau, we wear suits. And I remember I used to wear bow ties. And I remember the first time I wore a bow tie, outside of a tie, I woke up one morning, my wife and I had gone to the store. I said, I want a bow tie. I started wearing bow ties. Walked in the station, man, you think I came in there with Minister Farrakhan. And it was just those little snide comments like that.
Right.
Bean pies and, Muslim. And I'm like, dang, it got to the point, look, it ain't funny no more. Stop it.
Yeah.
Just that little underlying cuts like that.
Yeah.
And so all of that.
Did they really see, was there really a chasm between, well, let me ask you this first. We're not a monolith, right?
Correct.
Black people. Did you encounter black people, black officers pushing back on some of your concerns, or just going along to get along, or what they used to, how do they say, having plausible deniability?
Right.
Did you have any conversations or any friction between people with that mindset versus, a person like yourself who were, conscious of the things that were going on that wasn't right?
No, I don't remember anything from any of the brothers and sisters, but
philosophical differences about who you were as a black police officer?
No, because we were all facing the same thing. But the problem is, what are you going to do about it? Are you just, because a lot of times you get comfortable in a situation. I find my niche, I find my lane, and I don't want to get out of that lane. So if I hang out with you, then I'm getting out of my lane. I'm going to be associated with you. And so I never received any real pushback, but it was still not, well, understand what's happening, but, thing like that.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of navigating, the waters, who is and who isn't with you. And again, if you need some backup, and I'm not talking about specifically on the streets or as a police officer, just somebody coming at you, whatever way, who can I call in this moment to help me out of this or got my back? So, but it was never, because we were all facing the same situation, but it just depended on how heavy the situation became.
And of course, you probably had
Mine was
officers
heavy.
who were able to respond in kind to messages that they would hear, or things that would borderline disrespect, borderline racist stuff, the bow tie thing and all that, making reference to, which they're psychologically saying, oh, you associate with the enemy, so to speak. Right?
Exactly.
That's the message they're trying to give to you.
And it worked well because it got to the point when things like that were happening, people were coming to me. This happened to me, this happened. Well, okay, what we gonna do? Let's rally up the troops. If it's 1, 2, 3, or 10 of us, this is what we gonna do. Knock on the chief's office. this happened to him, why didn't it happen to them? You know, and that's all I wanted, fairness and equality,
Of course,
equal. And I told the chief, because I got accused of trying to create another union on the police department. I'm like, that's not it. I said, I just want fair treatment. If me as a black officer, if I hit somebody in the face wrongly and I get 5 days off and a white officer hits them off and they get a slap on the wrist, why? That's all we're looking for. And so it became that, and to the point where, like I said, so when things were happening, we got that union together, the association, and one of the first things we decided to do, when a rookie black officer started on the police department, we would give them a card. You know, don't trust the union. If you get into any type of situation, because when you first start on the police department, the best advice I can give anybody, or that we always gave, was you on probation. You keep your mouth shut until you get off probation, because at that time you can get fired on probation because I don't like the way your shoes look. So they can fire you because you're not protected by the union. Not that you are anyway, but you're not protected by the union and all of that stuff. So keep your mouth shut. And if you got any problems with any of these officers, anything comes up, call us day or night. So what we decided to do when a rookie officer, black officers got hired, we would, take you, your girlfriend, wife, whatever. We're going to take you out to breakfast, lunch, dinner, you choose. And we're going to tell you all of this stuff that I'm saying. Here's our cards. You get into any stuff, call us before it gets too deep where we can't help you get out of that situation.
Now, did that cause any further division between you, the black officers, and that's members of the association, and the white officers?
Oh yeah.
Kind of like you indoctrinating. I'm thinking that they would probably word it that way, indoctrinating the black officers,
creating that division.
the black officers. Well, in a sense, you're not doing that.
Creating that division.
Yeah, but you're letting them know that, hey, look, you have support here.
Exactly.
When things go awry.
And something's gonna always go awry, be it real or perceived, by them. And so, yeah, because I got called up to the chief's office, and at that time, the chief, when I started on the police department, he was a lieutenant over that drug unit that I was on. So I knew him. And I got called up to the chief's office, and I go up there, and he said, I understand that you started this, that, and the other. I said, yes, sir. What about it? He said, don't you think this is racist? I'm like, no, not at all. And so he threw out another officer's name, a sergeant or something, a white sergeant. Can he belong to this organization? I said, he can apply just like anybody else. I said, but why would he want to join an African-American Police Association? And so he said, well, this is not looking good. All right, I'm not asking for permission because I don't need your permission to do this. And so he said, we get into it, and he was steady on this thing that this is causing division. We don't need this. So I said, well, let me ask you this. Don't you have Asian police associations? You have Italian police associations, Polish police associations. I said, what's the difference? Because we start an African-American police association, all of a sudden we are trying to call. I said, no, it don't work like that. We get into, a big argument. The only thing that kept me, I'm crying. Physically crying. I'm so mad. And he's sitting like where you are, but it's a big desk in front of us. I was ready to dive across that desk and we were gonna fight. That's how mad I was. So he finally dismissed me. I walk on the secretary, she was a Hispanic lady. She said, Larnelle, are you all right? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, I heard what happened in there. She was shaking her head. I said, I'm good. Like I said, at that time I was in the police, I was a detective. I go back down to my desk, I gather my stuff up. The sergeant, who was a brother, he said, where you going? I said, I'm going home. He said, you can't leave. I said, watch me. I walked out and I left. But it was many days like that I left because I felt like if I stay here, I'm gonna either end up in jail or I'm gonna get fired. So I've spent many days, I just left. You can't leave, you didn't take any time. I walk away.
How did all this stuff going on year in and year out? It's always something. And you being a conscious brother, trying to protect and serve the public as well. You're fighting against a system and a machine.
Correct.
How did that reflect on your mental health and your physical health?
Oh man, you know what? And one of my partners that I worked with back then, years ago, he came up to me, he said, man, I feel bad. I said, about what? He said, all that fighting you did, man, we left you hanging. Because at that time, brothers and sisters on different shifts, you wouldn't see people. Some would be in this unit, other units, and we didn't really see anybody. and we didn't hang out together, because I'm sleeping in the daytime, you working in the daytime,
Right,
all
yeah.
of that stuff. And so he came to me, I said, man, you're the first person that really ever said anything like that to me. He said, man, because I know you went through a lot of hell fighting for us. I said, yeah. And there was a lot of times where I did stuff off the cuff because it was immediate reaction, and I didn't go seek help or backup. I just went and did it. Knock on the chief's door, see the secretary. I need to talk to the chief. I need to talk to the supervisor. What's going on with this, that, and the other? You did this. And so I caught hell for that, but it didn't really hit my mental until, because at that time we were going to a church and there was a homicide that we worked on. And it was this young brother and he was gangbanging, and it was a division, this one street. On one side, it was one city. On the other side, it was another city. And so he was on the other side of the street. No, he was on our side of the street. And him and another gang, they started shooting across the street. And it was this Hispanic lady, her and her family, they were in this van. The lady got out to go in the store to get some milk. And she came out and brother shot her in the head. And this was right in front of her family. And, from my vision, I saw this movie scene, the milk hits the ground, pouring out her blood, all this stuff. So he ran into the other city and he had braids in his hair when the shooting happened. And so when they caught him, he didn't get too far because the police response was immediate, and they caught him and then they gave him to us. So when they got him, me and one of the other detectives had to interview him. So he's running down the street. He knew what he had done. He's taking the braids out of his hair. So half of his head is braided, the other half, he had a half afro. So we're interviewing this brother. And so I look up his history. He was about maybe, I think like 18, 19, something like that. His father was in prison for murder. And so he was going that same route. So we're talking to this brother, talking to him. He never asked for an attorney. You read him your rights, never asked for an attorney or anything. And so we're reading and reading, and emphasizing, we know you were shooting. We know why you were shooting, because the other gang was shooting at you. So we're drilling this into him, breaking him down. And he didn't know he had killed the lady. We understand why you were shooting. We can understand because we would do the same thing, shooting the bull, breaking him down. So finally he admitted to shooting and all that stuff. So you write it up and have him write out a statement, and then you type it up and you go through the stuff. You make errors in there intentionally so they can't come back and say you coerced them into it, because you have them read it. Let's put in there that it was on a Saturday, and the gang that you were shooting at were GDs. And then you put like stuff like that. So no, it wasn't on Saturday, it was on Thursday. Okay, well, cross that out and put your initials next to it. It wasn't a green car, it was a red car. I'm sorry, cross that out and put your initials. Just little things like that to show that they had a cognizant understanding of what they were doing. And so got the confession and everything. And then, afterwards you go back and you take them to the booking room. So I went back in there and I said, look, man, we told you this, that, and the other, but the lady you shot, she died. That brother's expression didn't change. Not one iota. Took him to the booking room, and I can't even remember if it went to trial or not. And then it started hitting me. You got a job to do, but I done just sent this young brother to prison for the rest of his, for a good portion of his adult life. And so it really hit me after I retired and moved here, because there was another incident. This is when I was on the drug unit. And it goes back to my lack of training, but it goes to the point of having street knowledge and having some awareness of the situation. And so there were things we knew that we shouldn't do. So the lieutenant at that time, he came up, he said, hey, I got this number, call and see what they're talking about. So I called the number, and who is this? I said, this so-and-so. And I said, well, who is this? He said, his name, they called him Red. I said, I know you. He said, oh yeah, I remember you too. And so once again, this is a brother I've been buying heroin from, for months. And he said, what you need? I said, I got $500. What you got? He said, I'm in the city re-upping now. I should be back in a couple hours. I'll hit you up. I said, all right. So we agreed to meet at this Dunkin' Donuts. And so everybody set up around the Dunkin' Donuts. I drive my car up in there. And the mistake I made was getting into his car. And it was a two-door car. So I get in the back seat. His woman was on his passenger side. So I get in the car. Now me and him, we got this rapport. We had been talking and buying, doing our transactions for months. Get in the car, I'm sitting behind him, in the right behind the driver's seat. She's sitting over there, and we started talking business, and she looks back. She said, "I don't like you." I'm like, dang, what's wrong with this woman? And then he's trying to tell her, hold up. And she said, no, I just don't like that MF. And so me and her getting into it, I said, man, control your woman, what's up? And he's trying to control her. And then he puts the car in reverse and was gonna back away. That was a cardinal sin from a police standpoint because they didn't have any control over the situation. I didn't have any control over the situation, but goes back to our training, which I did not have to have in situation, but I knew I shouldn't have never gotten in that car. And to this day, I don't know why I got into that car, why I didn't have him get in my car. So they come rushing in, because they saw the car moving. But before they came in, like I said, she was arguing. I mean, she cussing me out left and right. Like, what the hell I do to this woman? And I see her reach under the seat. I'm like, oh man. Now I'm not paying attention to what's going on around. I didn't have a radio that wasn't wired up or nothing. And so she reaching under her seat. I'm like, this chick about to get a gun. I got my gun. I'm just like this. And then they came in, and part of the process was, so it wouldn't blow my cover, they arrest everybody in the car.
Course, yeah.
And so later on I found out she was reaching under the seat. She had a 44 Magnum, like that big Clint Eastwood gun, and that's what she was reaching for. And all this stuff. So when I moved here, like I said, we moved here in 2012. So about 2014, 2015, I was talking to one of my old partners on the gang unit. And the day he left the gang unit, we got into this big fight that night. It was at a quinceañera. We were riding around, and I was in charge of the unit that night because the sergeant had taken the night off. We turned this corner, and this squad car sitting in the middle of the street with the doors open and the lights going. We called communications, who's in squad block? They said it's so-and-so, he's at this address. So we go in the address. He was in there fighting with somebody over a microphone. He's trying to turn his party out. And they said no, because it was underage drinking. And so we called for some more units and everything. Like everybody got to get out of here, this party is done. We got in the parking lot. It was old people, young people. Man, we got it, scrapping. We were back to back just hitting people. We didn't have a chance to grab anybody, arrest them, because it was just a big fight. And so, it was a big deal, but it ain't nothing we had done before. But just this time, it was so many people, we couldn't arrest anybody. So we went on to finish our shift and we left. Sergeant calls me about 3 a.m. What the hell happened tonight? I'm like, what you mean? He said, the officer I was working with, his name was Nelson. He said Nelson called me and said he lost control. He wanted to be relieved of duty. I'm like, we got into a big fight. We got called in because everybody went to the station, made complaints. We all had to write paper on it, but it was nothing we hadn't done. So later on, I found out he had a drinking problem at that time. So this goes back to 2015. That day, it was on a Sunday. He called me up and we were talking. We talked for 3 hours because my wife was making dinner. She got mad at me because I was on the phone for 3 hours. But what happened was, before I became a police officer, it was this 8-year-old girl got abducted by this brother from the neighborhood, and he sexually assaulted her and killed her in this building downtown. And the officer, the one that said he wanted to be relieved of duty that night, the one I was on the phone with, he said, man, I used to have a nightmare because he found a little girl in that building. Mm-hmm. And he said I had a nightmare. Every night he would wake up with that little girl on his arm saying, save me, help me. And he said that dream didn't go away, that nightmare didn't go away until they executed him. He got the death sentence because him and his girlfriend they went across country killing people.
I think I remember that.
His brother's name was Alton Coleman.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Alton Coleman.
I do remember that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they went on this thing.
Yeah.
And he said that dream didn't go away until then. And that's when I found out he had a drinking problem and all that stuff. And he said it hit him really, really hard. And so that's when I started thinking, and it goes back to the question you asked when I started thinking about all these people that I arrested. And so I said, let me try to reach out to him. So I reached out to that sister because I knew her family, from around.
The one that tried to shoot you?
Yes.
Okay.
And all that. So I reached out to her. I found her number. I said, hey, her name was TK. I said, TK. She said, what's up, farmer? And anybody called me by my last name like that, I knew it was from from policing. And I said, TK, I just need to talk to you. And by then I was calling other people, just asking them. But this one bugged me for the longest. And she said, what's going on? I said, how you doing? And she said, I'm doing good. And she said, because that was about, like I said, that was about in 1989 when that incident happened. So this is about 2014, 15 when I'm talking to her. I said, TK, remember that night when we were in that car? She said, yeah. She started laughing. She said, I was going to kill you that night.
Like that?
Yeah, just like that. And so I said,
we cool now, but.
Yeah. And I said, well, my intention was not to get killed that night, so I was going to shoot you and Red. And she said, and this knocked me off my feet. She said, you know what? I just got clean. I said, what you mean you just got clean? Because I was in 89. She said, that monkey was on my back forever. She said, I just kicked that habit. I said, dang. And so we started talking. I said, whatever happened to Red? He got killed in the city. So a majority of them people that I was buying from, a lot of them were, hardcore gangbangers from the city. And so she said he got killed in the city. So I'm like, man. And then I started thinking about all that stuff, and it started hitting me hard to where it was just sometimes, man, I just started crying, and just straight out tears because thinking of it. And again, it goes back to you sworn to do a job and all that stuff, but it was still, I'm doing it to us all the time. And not that doing it to anybody that didn't look like me would be any better, but I know the jails and the system is heavy on us as opposed to other people.
So and you felt like you were an instrument in that.
Yes, right? And that's what it was. If you will. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Then it fast forward to where we are now with the NAACP, because like I was saying, some of the stuff that I was fighting against, they were constantly coming after me, trying to get me fired. The union that I'm paying dues to actively, pretty much throughout my whole career, was trying to get me fired.
So what was the saving grace from you in having this ongoing battle for one thing or another, and seeing unfairness and trying to address these things? How did you survive it to retirement?
What happened?
You're telling me that there are people that didn't make it, right? Whether they voluntarily got out or got caught up into something. Why was it so different for you?
I think, because what happened was I got married in 2007, and at that time my wife was my girlfriend, and we were friends before, and we found out that we had gone to the same church as kids at different times and all of that stuff, and so we would talk all the time, she know all the time. We would have conversations till late at night. And then she told me one day she had found this other church that she was interested in. She said, you need to come and check it out. So we would talk and talk and talk. Then we started going to the church and everything. And then, it'd be midnight, 2 a.m. It's too late to go to church in the morning, because, you got to get up early and everything. And so then that guilt thing started coming in. We can talk all night, do all this stuff, but we can't get our lazy butts up to go to church the next morning. So we started going to church and everything. And then one Sunday she didn't go and I did. And I went and joined that church. And at the time, the church was one of these churches, you could walk into a situation and you feel it. You walked onto that grounds of the church and you felt it. And that's what attracted us to the church, and we joined it and everything. And over time, that feeling wasn't there anymore. The dynamics of the church changed and all of that stuff. And so that's where I was grounded in that, because I would tell officers, and I still tell them to this day, if you truly want to become a police officer and a good police officer, you're gonna have to find something to keep you grounded. Be it, religion, be it your family, working out. You're gonna have to find something to get you away from this stuff, because I don't care if you're in Mayberry, you're gonna see something or do something that's gonna affect you, and it's gonna change your life. Your friends, the ones who you believe are your friends are they're gonna you'll find out who your real friends are, because they'll start distancing themselves away from you, because the stuff that you used to be able to do, you definitely can't do it now. And if you were doing it back then, getting away with it, you got away with it. That's your past. But you can't continue this stuff now. You will end up in jail, you end up dead, or you will end up killing somebody, and all of that stuff. So that was my grounding back then. And then when we moved out here, like I said, having discussions with other people that I arrested and all of that. So it got to that point where I started to write a book. And this right around the time I started talking to that sister that, she was gonna try to kill me that night. So I think right now I may have 3 pages. We're in 2024, but I got notes everywhere and all that stuff.
Hopefully, you doing this will be the
and that's what I'm saying. That became my release. Although I just got maybe 3 pages, but I got notes and I started jotting down this stuff, talking to some of the other people I used to work with and all that stuff. And so it kind of became all the stuff that I did as a police officer. And it goes back to knowing, who I was and what I was doing. But consciously, it still bothered me.
Gotcha.
Now,
you mentioned a few minutes ago, and that's the area that we want to talk about right now, is your involvement.
The NAACP.
And then becoming the president of a local chapter here. So all that experience, all that stuff you went through professionally.
Yeah.
You retired, you're kicking back in Arizona, chilling, living the life. And then you have some things that you recognize needed to be addressed, and you jump into this new world.
That I did not like policing, that I did not know I wanted to get involved in. And like I said, with all that stuff that was happening in the police world, I knew I needed some help. So I contacted the local branch of the NAACP. And they invited me to one of their meetings. It was at a church. And the local pastor, the one, the activists, and some of the other people that were activists and everything. Oh man, brother, we sorry you're going through all this stuff. We gonna help you out. And you got names, I got everything. They did this on this date, all this stuff. Man, brother, we sorry you're going through this. We gonna help you out. We gonna do this. We gonna get an investigator to come talk to you even further. Man, this 2024, that investigator still ain't came.
And that was the catalyst for you saying,
I did not want the NAACP. What I realized was, now, had I, as a black police officer, gone out and shot somebody or done something, then NAACP would have been after me. But because I was a black officer coming at something from a different angle that they weren't particularly used to, I don't know if they didn't know how to handle it or whatever the case, but they never contacted me. Never did. So I took that as a black man on this side of the fence, they don't want to help me. As a black man police officer on the other side of the fence doing something that they deemed unworthy, then they'd be after me. Mm-hmm. So that was it.
Because you're representing the establishment.
Exactly. I was still black, but I was blue.
Right. That's the paradox that the average black police officer will probably, I'm just imagine, have to deal with, because you're looked at as the enemy, but you're also being victimized too in your profession.
Most definitely. Yeah. And the thing is that, again, if you're policing in the city where you're from, you can't hide. Because like I said, when I was on that drug unit, my parents lived in the neighborhood. I go visit my parents. Now I'm running into people like I see you. I've been buying dope from you for the longest. And you walk, hey bro, how you doing? I'm doing all right. And man, I got some stuff in the car, Oh man, I gotta think quick. I ain't working right now. I definitely can't buy it, because then I'm out here, buying. Well, man, hit me up later on the night, And so it was all those dynamics I had to go through. Yeah. So it was all this fast thinking all the time.
You're weaving and threading yourself
all the time.
Yes.
All the time. Because one of the guys on the drug unit, when I first started, he said, man, I'll give you a piece of advice. Tell a lie every day. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, every day tell a lie so you get good at it. That's undercover work.